how does a tiny tribe, tucked away in the rugged hills of ancient Iran, claw its way to ruling the largest empire the world had ever seen, only to watch it all burn in a blaze of betrayal and chaos? The Achaemenid Empire's story isn't just a history lesson, it's a wild ride packed with bold conquests, shadowy conspiracies, and mysteries that still have scholars scratching their heads. From a shepherd turned king to a palace murder that shook the world, this tale has it all. So buckle up, because we're diving into an epic that'll make you rethink everything you thought you knew about power, ambition, and collapse. Picture the world around 559 BC. Mesopotamia's ancient cities hum with trade, Egypt's pharaohs bask in their Nile-soaked glory, and the Medes hold sway over a chunk of the Near East. Meanwhile, in the dusty highlands of modern-day Iran, a small tribe called the Persians barely registers on the map. They're herders, warriors, and survivors, scraping by in a harsh land of mountains and deserts. Yet, in less than a century, these underdogs will forge an empire stretching from the sun-scorched sands of Egypt to the misty valleys of India, from the Mediterranean's azure waves to the Central Asian steppes. How did they pull it off? And more importantly, how did it all come crashing down? It starts with a man named Cyrus, a figure so shrouded in legend he feels more myth than mortal. Was he a noble prince, destined for greatness, or a castaway raised by shepherds after his own grandfather tried to have him killed over a chilling prophecy? The truth is murky, but what's clear is this: Cyrus didn't just dream big, he acted on it. He took on the Median Empire, his own overlords, and instead of crushing them, he offered mercy, weaving former enemies into his growing realm. This wasn't just smart, it was revolutionary, a blueprint for an empire that thrived on diversity rather than domination. But as you'll see, even the boldest visions can unravel when trust turns to treachery. Cyrus's successors didn't just inherit his throne, they faced a world of challenges that would test their grit. His son Cambyses marched into Egypt, toppling a civilization older than memory, only to be dogged by whispers of madness. Did he really slaughter a sacred bull to spite the gods, as the Greeks claimed? Or was that just propaganda to smear a conqueror? Then there's Darius, a cunning noble who snatched the crown after a shadowy coup, claiming he'd saved the empire from a fraud. But was he the hero he painted himself as? Or a master manipulator hiding a darker truth? These questions linger, fueling debates that keep the Achaemenid story alive. The empire's peak under Xerxes was a spectacle. Hundreds of thousands of troops crossing seas on floating bridges, a canal carved through solid rock, all to humble the stubborn Greeks. Yet a crushing defeat at Salamis and a brutal assassination back home exposed cracks in the foundation. Fast forward to Darius III, betrayed by his own men and left to die on a lonely road as a young warlord named Alexander tore through the empire's heart. And when Persepolis, the glittering jewel of Persian power, went up in flames, was it revenge, a drunken mishap, or a calculated act to erase a legacy? These aren't just plot twists, they're the kind of shocks that make history feel like a thriller. What makes the Achaemenids so gripping isn't just their rise or fall, it's the secrets they left behind. Recent digs hint at women running estates, maybe even wielding real power, challenging everything we thought about ancient empires. Their faith, Zoroastrianism, might have shaped not just their laws, but the roots of Judaism and Christianity. And their ideas, governing diverse peoples with respect instead of force, still echo in modern nations. So, as we unravel this saga of triumphs, betrayals, and burning palaces, one question looms. What can the Achaemenids teach us about building something great and losing it all? Stick around because this story is about to get wild. Section 1. The Mysterious Rise of Cyrus. Imagine a world where empires are built on blood and fear, where conquering kings torch cities and chain their enemies. Now picture a man who flips that script, rising from nowhere to forge the largest empire ever seen, not by crushing his foes, but by winning them over. That's Cyrus the Great, the guy who kicked off the Achaemenid Empire around 559 BC. But here's the wild part. Nobody's quite sure who he really was. A prince born to rule, a shepherd dodging death, a prophesied threat to a king. His origins are a tangle of myths and half-truths, and his rebellion against the mighty Medes wasn't just bold, it was a game changer. So how did this mystery man pull off one of history's greatest upsets? Let's dive into the shocking story of Cyrus's rise. And trust me, it's not what you expect. Let's set the stage. It's the 6th century BC, and the Near East is a patchwork of powers. The Neo-Assyrian Empire's fading fast, Babylon's flexing its wealth, and Egypt's still the grand old dame of the Nile. Up in the northwest of modern-day Iran, the Medes hold court, a fierce confederation of tribes ruling from their capital, Ecbatana. They're the big dogs with fortified cities, a knack for horse breeding, and a reputation for keeping smaller tribes in line. Among those tribes are the Persians, a scrappy bunch living in the rugged highlands of Pars, what we now call Fars province. They're tough, sure, but they're no one's idea of world beaters yet. The Persians pay tribute to the Medes, and life's all about herding, farming, and staying out of trouble. That is, until Cyrus steps up and everything changes. So, who was Cyrus? That's where things get juicy. According to the Greek historian Herodotus, writing a century later, Cyrus's story starts with a prophecy that'd make any king sweat. Astyages, the Median king, dreams his daughter Mandane will birth a son who'll overthrow him. Spooked, he marries her off to a Persian noble, Cambyses, figuring a low-key husband keeps the prophecy at bay. But when Mandane gets pregnant, Astyages isn't taking chances. He orders the baby. Yep, Cyrus killed. Harsh, right? Here's the twist. The guy tasked with the deed, a courtier named Harpagus, can't go through with it. Instead, he hands the infant to a shepherd, who raises him in secret. Years later, Cyrus's knack for leadership shines through even as a kid. He's organizing village boys into mock armies. And when Astyages catches wind of this charismatic shepherd, the truth comes out. Instead of offing him, Astyages lets Cyrus live, maybe out of guilt or fear of the gods. But that's just one version, and it's got more drama than a soap opera. Other sources paint a different picture. Persian records, like those from later Achaemenid inscriptions, skip the shepherd stuff and call Cyrus a legit prince, heir to the Achaemenid family that had ruled Pars for generations. No prophecies, no secret adoptions, just a noble bloodline ready to shine. Then there's the Babylonian take, which nods to Cyrus as a leader chosen by their god Marduk, a divine stamp of approval for his conquests. So, what's the truth? Was Cyrus a royal scion or a castaway who beat the odds? Modern scholars lean toward the prince angle, pointing to archaeological finds like seals and tablets from Pars that confirm the Achaemenids were a big deal locally, but the shepherd tale persists. Maybe as propaganda to make Cyrus seem like a man of the people or a divine survivor destined for greatness. Either way, this mystery hooks us because it's not just about where he came from, it's about what he did next. By 559 BC, Cyrus is leading the Persians. Whether as king or chieftain, we're not totally sure. What we do know is he's got ambition burning in his veins. The Medes under Astyages are still the overlords, but they are not invincible. Their empire's a loose confederation, and cracks are showing. Assyrian records from earlier centuries mention the Medes as tough but fractious, often squabbling among themselves. Cyrus sees his shot. Around 550 BC, he does the unthinkable. He rebels against Astyages, his supposed grandfather, and the most powerful man in the region. This isn't just a local uprising. It's a direct challenge to the status quo, like a small-town mayor taking on a global superpower. The odds are stacked against him, but Cyrus has a few tricks up his sleeve. Here's where it gets intense. Cyrus doesn't just rally the Persians, he turns the Medes' own people against them. Herodotus tells us Harpagus, the same courtier who spared Cyrus as a baby, defects to his side, fed up with Astyages' tyranny. Other Median nobles follow, smelling weakness in their king. Cyrus's forces, lean and hungry, clash with the Median army, which is bigger but less united. The battles are brutal, fought across the Zagros Mountains' rocky passes. Details are scarce, but Babylonian chronicles hint at a decisive showdown where Cyrus's tactics, maybe guerrilla strikes or clever use of cavalry, outmaneuver the Medes. By 550 BC, Cyrus marches into Ecbatana, not as a prisoner but as a conqueror. Astyages is captured and the Median Empire falls. But what Cyrus does next is what sets him apart, and it's nothing short of revolutionary. In a world where victors slaughter, enslave, or loot, Cyrus breaks the mold. He doesn't torch Ecbatana or string up its leaders. Instead, he spares Astyages, maybe keeping him as an advisor or letting him retire quietly. Accounts vary. He welcomes Median nobles into his inner circle, keeping their titles and lands. The Median army, integrated into his own, not disbanded. This clemency isn't just kindness, it's strategy. Cyrus knows he can't hold a vast empire by fear alone. By treating the Medes as partners, he turns rivals into allies, building a loyal base for his next moves. Recent digs at sites like Pasargadae, Cyrus's capital, show Median-style architecture alongside Persian designs, proof he blended cultures from the start. This wasn't just a power grab, it was a vision of unity, and it shocked the ancient world. But let's dig deeper because there's controversy here. Some scholars wonder if Cyrus's mercy was overstated. Herodotus, our main source, was Greek, writing for a Greek audience, and he might have jazzed up the story to paint Cyrus as the ideal ruler, a contrast to barbaric Eastern kings. Babylonian texts like the Nabonidus Chronicle praise Cyrus but focus on his conquests, not his kindness. Could his clemency have been pragmatic, a way to avoid rebellion from a still powerful Median elite? Or was it rooted in Zoroastrianism, the Persian faith emphasizing truth and justice? Recent studies suggest Zoroastrian ideas, like the cosmic battle between good and evil, might have shaped Cyrus's policies more than we thought, giving his mercy a spiritual edge. Imagine a king who believes his rule is a divine mission. That's the kind of vibe Cyrus was giving off. There's also speculation about what sparked the rebellion. Was Astyages really a tyrant, as Herodotus claims, or did Cyrus exploit a power vacuum? Archaeological evidence from Median sites shows no major destruction, suggesting a relatively smooth transition, not a scorched earth campaign. Maybe Cyrus won hearts before swords, using diplomacy to peel away Median support. Another theory floating around is that economic factors played a role. The Persians controlled trade routes to the south, and rebelling could have been a bid to cut out the Median middleman. Whatever the trigger, Cyrus's victory wasn't just military, it was psychological, convincing a region to bet on a new kind of empire. This rebellion set the Achaemenid Empire's foundation, but it wasn't all smooth sailing. Cyrus now ruled a diverse realm, from Persian highlands to Median pastures, and keeping it together meant constant innovation. He adopted Median administrative tricks, like using satraps, governors, to manage provinces, but tweaked them to fit his inclusive style. Tablets from later Achaemenid sites show scribes recording taxes and laws in multiple languages, a nod to Cyrus's early efforts to unify without erasing local identities. His capital, Pasargadae, wasn't just a fortress, it was a statement, with gardens and palaces blending Persian, Median, and even Mesopotamian vibes. This guy wasn't building a kingdom, he was crafting a world. So, why does Cyrus's rise matter? Because it wasn't just about one man's ambition, it was a radical rethink of what an empire could be. His debated origins, whether shepherd or prince, made him a legend, a symbol of destiny fulfilled. His rebellion against the Medes proved a small tribe could topple giants, not with brute force, but with brains and heart. And his clemency? That was the real kicker, a policy that turned enemies into allies and laid the groundwork for an empire spanning 3 continents. But as Cyrus looked west to Lydia and Babylon, bigger challenges loomed. Could his vision survive the temptations of power? That's where things get even crazier, and you won't believe what happens next. Section 2. Cambyses' Egyptian Scandal. Cyrus the Great built an empire from the ashes of rebellion, turning a scrappy Persian tribe into a superpower that humbled the Medes. His vision of mercy and unity was the stuff of legends, but when he passed around 530 BC, the throne fell to his son Cambyses II, a man whose name still sparks whispers of madness, scandal, and a conquest that shook the ancient world. Cambyses didn't just inherit a crown, he took on the challenge of proving himself worthy of his father's colossal legacy. His target? Egypt, the glittering prize of the Nile, a civilization so old it made Persia look like a startup. But his triumph came with a dark cloud, stories of him losing his grip, desecrating sacred traditions, and sparking one of history's juiciest controversies, the Apis Bull incident. Was Cambyses an unhinged tyrant, as the Greeks claimed, or a victim of ancient fake news? Let's unravel this wild chapter of the Achaemenid saga, because what went down in Egypt is way more twisted than you'd think. First, let's rewind to 530 BC. Cyrus is gone, maybe felled in battle against nomads or quietly in his palace. Accounts differ, but his death leaves a void. Cambyses, his eldest son, steps up. Already seasoned from years as regent in Babylon, he's no rookie. He's been groomed to rule, learning the ropes of governing a diverse empire. But the pressure's on. The Achaemenid realm now spans from Anatolia to Central Asia, a sprawling mosaic of cultures held together by Cyrus's charisma and cunning. Cambyses needs a big win to cement his authority, and Egypt's the perfect target. Why? it's not just about land or loot. Egypt's the last major power in the Near East, standing outside Persian control, a cultural juggernaut with 3,000 years of history, massive wealth, and a reputation for being untouchable. Conquering it would scream, "I'm not just Cyrus's kid. I'm a legend in my own right." Cambyses doesn't waste time. By 525 BC, he's plotting one of the boldest campaigns in ancient history. Egypt, under Pharaoh Cambyses II, is no pushover. Its Nile Delta is a fortress of marshes and canals, its army battle-hardened and its navy bolstered by Greek allies. Cambyses has ruled for over 40 years, a crafty old fox who strengthened defenses and forged ties with Cyprus and Samos to counter Persian naval power. But Cambyses is ready. He's got the Achaemenid war machine, cavalry from Media, archers from Persia, and a fleet of Phoenician and Ionian ships. His first hurdle? The Sinai Desert, a brutal stretch of sand and heat between Persia and Egypt. Most armies would balk, but Cambyses pulls off a logistical miracle. According to Herodotus, he strikes a deal with Arab tribes who supply water via camel caravans, turning a death trap into a highway. Archaeological finds like Persian-era way stations in the Sinai back this up, showing Cambyses' knack for planning. This guy's not just swinging swords. He's thinking 3 steps ahead. As Cambyses marches, fate hands him a gift. In 526 BC, Amasis dies, leaving the throne to his son, Psamtik III, a green ruler barely 6 months into his reign. The timing's perfect for Persia. By early 525 BC, Cambyses reaches Pelusium, the gateway to the Nile Delta. The battle's fierce. Egyptians fight hard on their home turf, and Greek mercenaries bolster their ranks. But Persian numbers and discipline win out. Psamtik's forces break, retreating to Memphis, Egypt's ancient capital. Cambyses presses the advantage, laying siege to the city. Memphis, with its towering walls and river defenses, could have held out for years, but morale's crumbling. After a short siege, the city falls and Psamtik is captured. Cambyses treats him with respect at first, following a Achaemenid custom for defeated kings. But when whispers of rebellion surface, Psamtik's fate turns grim. Sources say he was executed, though details are murky to keep things YouTube-friendly. In one stroke, Cambyses has done what few dare dream. He's brought Egypt, the world's oldest civilization, under Persian rule. This conquest is massive. Egypt becomes a satrapy, a province in the Achaemenid system, pumping wealth into Persian coffers. Cambyses doesn't just plant a flag, he dives into Egyptian culture, adopting the title of pharaoh and commissioning inscriptions in hieroglyphs. Temple records from Saqqara show him as Mesutir, son of Ra, kneeling before Egyptian gods. This isn't just conquest, it's assimilation, a page from Cyrus's playbook. He restores temples, respects local priests, and keeps Egyptian administrators in place. Archaeological evidence like Persian-style seals found in Memphis suggests a smooth administrative transition. Cambyses is building on his father's legacy, proving the Achaemenids can rule not just by force, but by blending into the cultures they conquer. So far, so good, right? But here's where things take a dark turn, and the Apis bull scandal rears its ugly head. The Apis bull was no ordinary animal to Egyptians. It was a living god, a sacred symbol of fertility and strength, chosen for its unique markings and worshipped at a temple in Memphis. When an Apis bull died, Egypt mourned like it lost a king, with elaborate funerals and nationwide grief. A new bull selection was a big deal, a ritual tying the pharaoh to divine order. In 525 BC, during Cambyses' reign, an Apis bull dies and a new one is installed. According to Herodotus, Cambyses crashes the celebration, mocks the priests, and, brace yourself, stabs the bull, wounding it fatally. He's said to have laughed at the Egyptians' foolish worship, flaunting his contempt for their gods. This story, echoed by later Greek writers like Plutarch, paints Cambyses as a deranged tyrant, spiraling into madness. They pile on more accusations. He desecrated tombs, burned sacred statues, and even killed his own sister wife in a fit of rage. And that's a lot to unpack, and it's the kind of scandal that sticks. But hold up, is this true or is it ancient propaganda? Let's dig into the Greek angle. Herodotus, writing decades later, was Greek, and the Greeks weren't exactly Persian fans. By his time, Persia and Greece were locked in a bitter rivalry, culminating in Xerxes' invasion in 480 BC. Trashing Persian kings was a great way to rally Greek pride and paint the East as barbaric. Cambyses, as the guy who conquered Egypt, a Greek ally, was an easy target. His alleged crimes read like a checklist of anti-Persian stereotypes: cruel, irrational, godless. But there's a problem. Egyptian sources tell a different story. A stele from the Serapeum, the Apis bull's burial site, records the bull's death in 524 BC during Cambyses' reign and its burial with full honors. Cambyses himself is named as funding the ceremony, a standard pharaoh's duty. No mention of stabbings or mockery. Another inscription shows him donating to Egyptian temples, hardly the act of a guy trashing sacred sites. So, what gives? Modern scholars smell a rat. The Apis bull story might be Greek fiction, spun to demonize Cambyses. Egyptologist Pierre Briand argues Herodotus exaggerated or invented tales to fit a narrative of Persian decline after Cyrus. The bull's death was natural per Egyptian records, and Cambyses' involvement was ceremonial, not criminal. Other accusations, like tomb robbing or killing his sister, lack corroboration. Persian sources like the Behistun inscription don't mention these scandals, focusing instead on Cambyses' military successes. Even Herodotus admits Cambyses was strategic, citing his use of defectors like Phanes of Halicarnassus, a Greek mercenary who fed him Egyptian intel. This paints a picture of a calculated leader, not a raving lunatic. Recent digs at Amarna and Memphis uncover Persian-era artifacts like administrative tablets showing Egypt's economy thrived under Cambyses, suggesting stability, not chaos. Still, the madness narrative isn't baseless. Cambyses' later years were rough. He planned campaigns against Carthage and Nubia, but both flopped. The Carthaginian expedition fizzled when his Phoenician fleet refused to attack their kin. The Nubian march ended in disaster, with thousands reportedly lost to a sandstorm, though that tale too might be Greek hyperbole. These failures could have fueled perceptions of a king losing his edge. Then there's the psychological angle. Ruling an empire spanning millions of square miles with constant threats of rebellion would stress anyone out. Some speculate Cambyses struggled with the weight of Cyrus's legacy, maybe even clashing with Persian nobles who doubted his grit. Zoroastrianism, with its emphasis on truth and order, might have added pressure to be a perfect king, and cracks in his mental state could have been exaggerated into madness by enemies. The real scandal, though, hits in 522 BC. While Cambyses is in Egypt, News breaks that a guy claiming to be his brother Bardia has seized the throne back in Persia. Problem is, Cambyses had Bardia quietly dealt with years earlier. Details are vague, but let's just say it wasn't pretty. Was this rebel the real Bardia, miraculously alive, or an imposter, as later claimed? Cambyses races back to reclaim his crown, but tragedy strikes. Herodotus says he accidentally cuts himself with his own dagger while mounting a horse. The wound festers, and he dies in Damascus. Persian sources are quieter, but agree he passed without reaching home. This sudden death amid a rebellion smells fishy. Was it an accident or a convenient accident arranged by rivals? Scholars debate whether nobles, maybe even Darius, had a hand in it, setting the stage for a power grab. Either way, Cambyses' death leaves the empire teetering, and the Apis bull story becomes a footnote in a bigger drama. So, what's the truth about Cambyses? The Greek tales of him as a madman don't hold up against Egyptian evidence. He conquered a titan, integrated Egypt into the empire, and ruled with a mix of force and finesse. The Apis bull incident? Likely propaganda spun by Greeks to tarnish a king who dared challenge their allies? But Cambyses wasn't perfect. His failed campaigns and the Bardia crisis hint at a ruler stretched thin, maybe buckling under pressure. Recent speculations suggest he was more pragmatic than psychotic, using Egyptian religion to legitimize his rule, much like Cyrus did with the Medes. His story is a lesson in how history gets twisted. Winners write the tales, and losers get the bad press. As the empire wobbles, a new player's about to step up, and his rise is even shadier than Cambyses' fall. Stick around, because this gets wilder. Section 3, Darius's dubious throne. The Achaemenid Empire was soaring. Cyrus the Great forged it with vision and mercy, toppling the Medes. His son Cambyses added Egypt's ancient glory to the mix, though whispers of madness and a sacred bull scandal dogged him. But in 522 BC, the empire hits a wall. Cambyses is dead, struck down by a freak accident, or was it something shadier? A rebel claiming to be his brother Bardia snatches the throne, and the realm teeters on chaos. Enter Darius, a nobleman with a spear, a plan, and a knack for rewriting history. His rise to power is one of the most audacious power grabs ever, clouded by questions about whether he was a hero or a hustler. Did he save the empire or steal it? And how did he turn a patchwork of conquests into a slick, world-class machine? Buckle up, because Darius's story is a wild ride of betrayal, brilliance, and a throne that might have been built on a lie. Let's set the scene. It's 522 BC, and the Achaemenid Empire is a sprawling beast stretching from the Nile to the Indus. Cambyses has just died in Damascus, racing back from Egypt to crush a rebellion. The rebel? A man claiming to be Bardia, Cambyses' younger brother, who's rallying support with promises of tax breaks and freedom. Problem is, Cambyses supposedly had Bardia quietly taken out years earlier. Let's just say it wasn't a friendly family chat. So who's this guy sitting on the throne in Susa? The real Bardia, back from the shadows, or a fake cashing in on a dead man's name? The empire's nobles are split, provinces are restless, and the whole operation's one spark away from imploding. This is the mess Darius steps into, and he's about to play his cards like a master. Darius, son of Hystaspes, isn't a nobody. He's a high-ranking noble from the Achaemenid clan, a distant cousin of Cambyses, and a seasoned soldier who served as a royal spearman. He's got connections, charisma, and a sharp mind, but he's not in the direct line for the throne. That should have been Bardia's, or maybe a closer relative's. Yet Darius smells opportunity in the chaos. According to his own account, carved on a cliff at Behistun in western Iran, the guy ruling as Bardia is no prince. He's Gaumata, a Magian priest who's pulled off the ultimate con. Darius claims Gaumata faked his identity, mimicking Bardia to seize power, and only a few insiders know the truth. Sounds like a hero's tale, right? But here's where it gets murky. Darius's story smells like a cover-up, and the way he grabs the crown raises eyebrows. Picture this. Darius, barely 28, rallies 6 noble buddies. Think of them as his inner circle, the Achaemenid equivalent of a heist crew. They ride to a fortress in Media, where Gaumata is holed up. In a daring raid, they storm the place, catch the imposter off guard, and take him out. No trial, no public reveal, just a quick, bloody end. Darius declares himself king, claiming he's restored the rightful Achaemenid line. The Behistun inscription, his official PR blast, spins it as a divine mission. He's the chosen of Ahura Mazda, Zoroastrianism's supreme god, saving the empire from a liar. He even marries Atassa, Cyrus's daughter, to tie himself to the founder's bloodline. Smooth move, but it's got historians squinting. Was Gaumata really a fraud, or was the real Bardia inconveniently alive, threatening Darius's ambitions? Let's unpack the controversy. Herodotus, the Greek historian, backs Darius's story, saying Gaumata was a look-alike who fooled everyone until Darius exposed him. But Herodotus wrote decades later, and he's got a Greek bias, loving tales of Eastern intrigue. Persian sources like the Behistun inscription are Darius's own propaganda, so they're hardly neutral. No contemporary records confirm Gaumata's existence, and the speed of Darius's coup, months after Cambyses' death, feels too convenient. Some scholars, like Pierre Bryant, speculate Darius invented Gaumata to justify killing the real Bardia, who might have been popular for his tax cuts. Why? Bardia's policies threatened noble privileges, and Darius, backed by the elite, needed a scapegoat to rally support. Recent studies of Achaemenid seals and tablets show no trace of Gaumata's rule, which could mean he was a fiction, or Darius erased him from history. It's the kind of plot twist that makes you wonder, was Darius a savior or a schemer who pulled off a royal heist? The legitimacy question didn't go away. Darius wasn't a direct heir, and his claim rested on his Achaemenid lineage and divine favor. To sell it, he leaned hard into Zoroastrianism, casting himself as the champion of truth against the lie of Gaumata. The Behistun relief shows him towering over a chained Gaumata, a visual flex of his authority. But the empire wasn't buying it wholesale. Rebellions erupted across the map. Babylon, Elam, Media, even Persia itself. Local leaders, smelling weakness, declared themselves kings, from a self-styled Nebuchadnezzar IV in Babylon to a Median chief named Fravartish. Darius faced 19 battles in a single year, fighting 9 pretenders per Behistun. That's not a coronation. It's a war for survival. His forces, led by loyal generals like Hydarnes, crushed the revolts with brutal efficiency. Think beheadings and impalings, though we'll keep it chill for YouTube. By 521 BC, Darius had the empire locked down, but the blood on his hands and the whispers about his throne lingered. So how'd he turn this shaky start into a golden age? Here's where Darius's genius shines. He didn't just win battles. He built a system that made the Achaemenid Empire a masterpiece of governance. Cyrus conquered, Cambyses expanded, but Darius organized. He took a sprawling mess of territories and turned it into a well-oiled machine balancing central control with local freedom. His first move? Divide the empire into 20 satrapies or provinces, each run by a satrap, a governor handpicked for loyalty. These weren't just bureaucrats, they were nobles like interferns wielding serious power. To keep them in check, Darius appointed separate military commanders and royal secretaries, creating a web of checks and balances. He also sent out eyes and ears of the king, inspectors who'd pop up unannounced to sniff out corruption. Tablets from Persepolis show these agents auditing everything from tax records to local disputes. It's like an ancient CIA, ensuring no satrap got too cozy with rebellion. Darius's tax system was another stroke of brilliance. Before him, tribute was a hodgepodge. Gold here, horses there, whatever a province could cough up. Darius standardized it, assessing each satrapy based on its wealth. Babylon, the richest, paid 25 tons of silver a year. Poorer regions like Bactria chipped in less. This cash funded a standing army, lavish courts, and massive projects, while keeping provinces invested in the empire's success. To make trade hum, he introduced the Daric, a gold coin of pure, consistent weight, stamped with his image as an archer. Silver sigloi followed, and these coins became the dollar of the ancient world, found as far as India and Greece. Archaeological digs in Anatolia uncover hordes of Darics, proof of their reach. Darius wasn't just taxing, he was building an economy that tied the empire together. Then there's the Royal Road, a 1,500-mile highway from Sardis in Anatolia to Susa in Persia. This wasn't just a path, it was a lifeline, with 111 post stations, bridges, and couriers who could relay messages in days. Herodotus marveled, neither snow nor rain, nor heat, nor darkness stops these riders. Sound familiar? It's the blueprint for modern postal systems. The road didn't just move orders, it carried goods, ideas, and people, knitting the empire's diversity into a single network. Recent excavations in Turkey reveal stone markers along the route, showing Darius's obsession with connectivity. He knew an empire this big needed to talk fast, or it'd fracture. Darius also got legal systems in order. He let provinces keep their local laws. Egyptians followed their traditions, Babylonians theirs, but added royal judges for big cases like trade disputes or rebellions. The Persepolis fortification tablets, thousands of clay records, show scribes tracking everything from grain rations to court rulings in Aramaic, the empire's lingua franca. This multilingual setup let locals govern themselves while staying loyal to the king. It's a masterclass in ruling without micromanaging, and it kept the empire humming. But Darius's crowning jewel was Persepolis, his new ceremonial capital. Started around 518 BC, it wasn't just a city, it was a flex. Built on a terrace with views of the Persian plains, Persepolis was all about showing off. The Apadana, a massive hall with 72 columns, could host thousands. Its staircases, carved with reliefs of 23 nations bringing gifts, screamed, "This is my empire," and everyone's in on it. Unlike Assyrian art, which gloated over crushed enemies, these sculptures showed harmony. Bactrians with camels, Indians with gold, all bowing to Darius. Excavations reveal craftsmen from Egypt, Greece, and Babylon worked together, blending styles into a distinctly Achaemenid vibe. Persepolis wasn't practical, it was ideological. a stage for Darius to play the great king. Speculation swirls around Darius's motives. Was Persepolis a love letter to Zoroastrianism? With its emphasis on order and light, the winged symbol of Ahura Mazda pops up everywhere, and some argue Darius used religion to cement his legitimacy. Others see it as a propaganda hub, dazzling visitors with wealth to quiet doubts about his throne. Recent studies of Persepolis' archives suggest women like Atassa played bigger roles than thought, managing estates and maybe advising Darius. This hints at a more inclusive court, challenging old views of Persian patriarchy. Either way, Persepolis was Darius's mic drop, proof he wasn't just holding the empire, he was elevating it. Darius didn't stop at admin. He pushed the empire's borders, adding northwest India and Thrace to the map. His Scythian campaign across the Danube, though a mixed bag, showed his ambition. But trouble brewed. The Ionian Greek cities in Anatolia rebelled in 499 BC, backed by Athens, sparking a feud that'd haunt his successors. Darius crushed it, but the Greek problem simmered. His attempt to punish Athens in 490 BC ended in defeat at Marathon, a rare blemish. Still, these were side quests. Darius's real legacy was the empire's backbone, a system so robust it outlasted him. So, was Darius's throne legit? Probably not in the way he claimed. The Gaumata story feels too neat, and his rush to marry Cyrus's daughter screams damage control. He might have taken out a rightful king to seize power, spinning a tale to cover his tracks. But legitimacy's only half the story. Darius's administrative genius, satrapies, taxes, roads, coins, laws, turned a fragile empire into a colossus. His reforms influenced Rome, the caliphates, even modern states. Yet the seeds of trouble were sown. His Greek obsession and the nobles' growing power would test his successors. As Darius hands the reins to Xerxes, the empire's at its peak, but storm clouds are gathering. What happens when ambition outpaces caution? That's next, and it's a doozy. Section 4, Xerxes' Greek gamble, Darius. I had pulled off the impossible. From a questionable coup, he built the Achaemenid Empire into a juggernaut, with roads, coins, and a dazzling capital at Persepolis. His system held together a realm from India to Egypt, a masterpiece of brains over brawn. But in 486 BC, Darius dies, leaving his son Xerxes I to steer the ship. Xerxes inherits an empire at its zenith, but also a nagging problem. Greece. Those stubborn city-states, especially Athens, had humiliated Darius at Marathon in 490 BC, and the sting lingers. Xerxes doesn't just want revenge, he's betting big on a massive invasion to crush Greece and cement his legacy. It's a gamble of epic proportions, with floating bridges, a carved canal, and an army that dwarfs anything the Greeks can muster. But when the Battle of Salamis turns the tide and a shocking assassination cuts his reign short, Xerxes' bold move becomes a cautionary tale. Was this a doomed dream, or a near miss that could have changed history? Let's dive into this high-stakes chapter, because it's packed with jaw-dropping feats and brutal twists. Picture 486 BC. The Achaemenid Empire is a colossus, spanning 3 continents and dozens of cultures. Persepolis gleams as a symbol of power, its reliefs showing tribute bearers from every corner of the realm. Xerxes, meaning ruling over heroes, steps up as king. Groomed for the role from birth, he's the son of Darius and Atassa, Cyrus the Great's daughter, giving him a rock-solid claim to the throne, unlike his dad's shaky start. But Xerxes isn't just a figurehead. He's ambitious, meticulous, and determined to outshine his predecessors. Early on, he proves his mettle by crushing rebellions in Egypt and Babylon, though he's harsher than his forebears, reportedly melting Babylon's sacred statue of Marduk to assert dominance. This ruthlessness hints at a king who plays hardball, but it's Greece that becomes his obsession. Why? It's not just about Marathon's embarrassment. The Greek city-states, especially Athens with its growing navy, threaten Persian control over Ionian cities in Anatolia. Plus, Xerxes wants a legacy-defining win, something to echo Cyrus's conquests. Greece, with its fractured politics and tiny armies, seems like a ripe target. But this gamble's about to get wild. Xerxes doesn't mess around. From 484 BC, he launches the ancient world's biggest military buildup. We're talking 4 years of planning, stockpiling grain, building ships, and rallying troops from every satrapy. Herodotus claims Xerxes assembled over 2 million men, a clear exaggeration, but modern estimates still peg his army at 150,000 to 200,000, with 1,200 ships. This is a multinational force: Persian immortals in scale armor, Bactrian cavalry, Ethiopian archers, Phoenician sailors, and more, each bringing unique skills. The logistics are mind-boggling. To feed this horde, supply depots are set along the route from Anatolia to Greece. Recent archaeological finds in Thrace uncover Persian-era granaries, proof of Xerxes' foresight. But the real showstoppers are his engineering feats, each designed to flex Persian might and solve impossible problems. First up, crossing the Hellespont, the narrow strait between Asia and Europe. Xerxes orders 2 pontoon bridges built, lashing 674 ships, together with flax and papyrus cables, to form a floating road. When a storm wrecks the first attempt, Herodotus says Xerxes, in a fit of rage, had the sea whipped. 300 lashes for defying him. It's a colorful story, likely Greek propaganda to paint him as unhinged, but it captures the campaign's audacity. The rebuilt bridges hold, letting his army march into Europe over 7 days and nights in spring 480 BC. Next, to avoid the treacherous waters around Mount Athos, where a Persian fleet sank in 492 BC, Xerxes has a 1.2-mile canal dug through the peninsula. This isn't just practical, it's a statement. Persia reshapes the earth itself. Archaeological surveys confirm the canal's existence, with traces of its banks still visible. These projects scream confidence, but they also drain the treasury and stretch resources. Xerxes is all in, and there's no turning back. As the army moves through Thrace and Macedon, most local powers submit, offering earth and water as tokens of loyalty. The Thessalians, northern Greeks, cave without a fight. But a coalition led by Athens and Sparta digs in, despite mustering only a fraction of Persia's numbers, maybe 7,000 hoplites and 300 ships. The first clash comes at Thermopylae, a narrow coastal pass where Spartan king Leonidas and his 300 Spartans plus allies hold the line. For 3 days, they fend off Persian assaults, their tight phalanx shredding lighter-armed foes. Xerxes throws his best troops, including the immortals, but the Greeks hold firm until a local trader reveals a mountain path. Persian elites outflank the defenders, and Leonidas, staying to cover the retreat, goes down in a legendary last stand. Thermopylae is a Persian win, but it costs time and lives, and the Greeks' defiance sparks hope. Recent studies suggest Xerxes underestimated Greek unity, expecting more city-states to defect. This miscalculation sets the stage for trouble. With the pass open, Xerxes marches south, burning Athens after its people flee to nearby islands. It's a symbolic victory, but the real fight's at sea. The Greek fleet, led by Athenian Admiral Themistocles, lures the Persian navy into the narrow straits of Salamis in September 480 BC. Here, numbers become a curse. Xerxes' 1,200 ships, Phoenician, Egyptian, Ionian, cram into tight waters, unable to maneuver. The Greek triremes, smaller but nimbler, ram and sink Persian vessels in a chaotic melee. Herodotus says Xerxes watched from a golden throne on the shore, seeing his fleet crumble. Modern estimates suggest Persia lost 200 to 300 ships to Greece's 40, a devastating blow. Salamis isn't just a battle, it's a turning point. Xerxes' supply lines, dependent on sea routes, are now vulnerable. The Greeks, outnumbered, have flipped the script, proving brains can beat brawn. Recent naval archaeology off Salamis finds Persian-era shipwrecks, hinting at the scale of the disaster. Why did Salamis go so wrong? Speculation abounds. Some argue Xerxes' commanders, like his admiral Aristobulus, misjudged the terrain, assuming open water tactics would work in confined straits. Others point to overconfidence. After Thermopylae, Xerxes thought Greece was done. There's also talk of disunity. The Persian fleet was a mix of cultures, with Phoenicians and Ionians not always seeing eye to eye. Greek sources hinted Ionian crews wavering, some even defecting mid-battle. Herodotus's bias makes this iffy, but tablets from Persepolis show Xerxes later punishing disloyal satraps, suggesting cracks in the coalition. Another theory? Xerxes' own hubris. His massive force was a flex, but it strained logistics. Feeding 200,000 men across Greece was a nightmare, and Salamis exposed the limits of sheer size. Whatever the cause, Xerxes faces a hard call. He could have doubled down, but Salamis shakes him. With winter looming and Greek naval raids threatening supplies, Xerxes retreats to Asia, leaving his general Mardonius with a still formidable army to finish the job. This isn't cowardice. Xerxes is preserving the empire's core. He heads to Sardis, then Susa, planning to regroup, but in 479 BC, Mardonius's forces are crushed at Plataea by a united Greek army, while the Greek fleet sinks Persian ships at Mycale. These defeats end Xerxes' Greek dream. The empire keeps its Anatolian holdings, but mainland Greece slips away. The campaign's failure isn't catastrophic. Persia's still massive, but it dents Xerxes' prestige and burns through cash. Recent estimates suggest the invasion cost billions in modern terms, straining the treasury and forcing tax hikes. For the Greeks, Salamis and Plataea become myths of freedom over Eastern despotism, a narrative that oversimplifies a complex clash. But back in Persia, the real shock is yet to come. Xerxes returns to focus on internal affairs, pouring wealth into Persepolis. The Hall of 100 Columns, a colossal addition, showcases his commitment to Darius's vision. Reliefs from the site showing Xerxes enthroned radiate stability. But beneath the glitz, trouble brews. Court life is getting insular. Xerxes, once a hands-on king, grows distant, surrounded by palace officials and harem women who control access. The harem, led by figures like Queen Amestris, wields serious influence, stirring succession plots. Administrative tablets from Persepolis show rising corruption, with satraps skimming taxes. The Greek campaign's cost has emboldened nobles who flex more autonomy. This sets the stage for a betrayal so brazen it'll make your jaw drop. In 465 BC, after 21 years on the throne, Xerxes is assassinated in his bedchamber. The plot's straight out of a thriller. Artabanus, commander of the royal bodyguard, teams up with a eunuch chamberlain named Aspametres. They strike at night, killing Xerxes. Details are vague, but let's say it was messy. To cover their tracks, they frame Xerxes' eldest son, Darius, accusing him of patricide. The prince is executed, clearing the path for Artabanus to install a younger son, Artaxerxes, as a puppet king. Herodotus, our main source, spins a vivid tale, but he's Greek, so take it with salt. Persian sources like the Persepolis tablets are mum, but later inscriptions under Artaxerxes confirm the coup. Why'd they do it? Speculation runs hot. Artabanus might have wanted power, resenting Xerxes' aloofness. The harem's role is murky. Some argue Amestris orchestrated it to favor Artaxerxes, her favorite. Recent studies suggest economic strain from the Greek campaign fueled noble unrest, with Artabanus exploiting the chaos. It's a stark reminder. Even great kings aren't safe in their own palaces. The assassination's fallout is swift. Artaxerxes, barely 20, isn't the pushover Artabanus hoped. Within months, he turns the tables, executing the conspirators and claiming the throne for real. This coup exposes the empire's underbelly, court intrigue, noble rivalries, and a growing reliance on palace insiders like eunuchs. It's a far cry from Cyrus's open-handed rule, yet the empire endures. Xerxes' Greek gamble, though a flop, didn't break it. The satrapy system, royal road, and derricks keep humming, a testament to Darius's framework. But cracks are showing, the treasury's strained, satraps are bolder, and Greece's defiance inspires others like Egypt to rebel. Recent digs in Persepolis uncover seals showing Xerxes' later years focused on consolidating, not expanding, hinting at a king aware of the limits. What's Xerxes' legacy? The Greeks painted him as a caricature of arrogance, the Eastern despot humbled at Salamis. Herodotus's tales of sea-whipping and golden thrones fed this, but archaeology tells a nuanced story. Persepolis' grandeur, with its multicultural art, shows a king committed to unity. His administrative tweaks, like standardizing weights, kept trade flowing. Some argue Salamis wasn't a total loss. It forced Persia to pivot to diplomacy, using gold to pit Greek cities against each other. A smarter play. Others see hubris, a king blinded by his father's success. Zoroastrianism's emphasis on truth might have pushed Xerxes to see Greece as a lie to crush, but the faith's role is debated. Either way, his assassination reveals a court turning inward, a sign of things to come. As Artaxerxes takes over, the empire's still mighty, but the Greek gamble's scars linger. What happens when the next threat isn't a city-state, but a Macedonian whirlwind? That's next, and it's going to blow your mind. Section 5, the empire's hidden strengths. The Achaemenid Empire was a titan, forged by Cyrus's vision, expanded by Cambyses, streamlined by Darius, and tested by Xerxes' bold Greek gamble. By 465 BC, with Xerxes gone and Artaxerxes Y on the throne, this empire spans 3 continents, a dazzling tapestry of cultures from the Nile to the Indus. We've seen epic battles, shady coups, and naval disasters. But there's more to this story than kings and conquests. What made this empire tick wasn't just swords and gold. It was a web of hidden strengths that kept it thriving for over 2 centuries. From women wielding power behind the scenes, to ingenious water systems turning deserts green, and a faith that shaped laws and lives, the Achaemenids were way ahead of their time. ready to uncover the secrets that made this empire a marvel. Let's dive into the lesser-known corners of Achaemenid brilliance, because these surprises will spark your curiosity like never before. First, let's talk about something that might flip your view of ancient empires: the role of women. When you picture Persian kings, you probably imagine bearded dudes on golden thrones, but the women around them weren't just sitting pretty. Achaemenid women, especially royal ones, had clout that'd make modern power brokers jealous. Take Atossa, daughter of Cyrus, wife of Darius, and mother of Xerxes. She wasn't just a queen, she was a political heavyweight. Herodotus hints she influenced Darius's decisions, and her marriage tied Darius's shaky claim to Cyrus's legacy. But it's not just queens. Recent digs at Persepolis have turned up clay tablets, think ancient spreadsheets, that reveal women running the show in ways we didn't expect. These fortification tablets, over 30,000 of them, record payments, rations, and orders from 509 to 494 BC. They mention women managing estates, overseeing workers, and even traveling on royal business. One tablet names a noblewoman, Irdabama, who controlled massive land holdings and hundreds of laborers, raking in wine and grain like a CEO. She wasn't alone. Women like Artistone, Darius's favorite wife, had their own seals, a sign of authority, and ran private businesses. This wasn't just elite ladies flexing. Lower-class women worked as artisans, scribes, and even soldiers' support staff, earning wages equal to men's in some cases. A tablet records a woman named Bakabadush supervising a grain depot, paid in silver. This challenges the old idea of Achaemenid women as veiled and sidelined. Sure, royal women lived in harems, but these weren't locked cages. They were political hubs where queens like Amestris, Xerxes' wife, pulled strings, maybe even plotting his assassination. Recent scholars speculate the harem was a power base, with women shaping succession and alliances. Why is this a big deal? Because most ancient societies from Greece to Rome kept women on the margins. The Achaemenids, blending Persian, Median, and Babylonian traditions, gave women roles that hint at a more inclusive system. Was this proto-feminism or pragmatic use of talent? Either way, it's a hidden strength that kept the empire's economy and court humming. And it's got researchers buzzing with new questions. Now let's shift gears to something that sounds mundane but was pure genius: qanats. Ever wonder how an empire ruled deserts without drying up? The Achaemenids mastered water like nobody else, thanks to qanats, underground channels that turned barren lands into gardens. Picture this. You're in the scorching Iranian plateau, where rivers are scarce and rain's a rare guest. Qanats tap groundwater from mountain aquifers, channeling it through tunnels to fields and cities. These aren't simple ditches. They're engineering marvels, dug by hand with precise slopes to keep water flowing without pumps. Some stretch for miles, with vertical shafts for maintenance like ancient manholes. Archaeological surveys in Fars and Oman show qanats from Achaemenid times, some still in use today. One near Yazd, Iran, is over 2,000 years old and runs for 40 miles. That's not just tech. It's a lifeline. The Achaemenids didn't invent qanats. Earlier Persians and Mesopotamians had versions, but they scaled them up. Darius's engineers spread qanats across the empire, from Egypt's oases to Central Asia's steppes. Why? Food and power. Qanats irrigated crops like wheat, barley, and dates, feeding armies and cities. They also supported paradise gardens, walled orchards that were royal status symbols. The Greek word paradisos comes from Persian pyridesa, meaning enclosed garden. Excavations at Pasargadae, Cyrus's capital, reveal qanat-fed channels, watering stone-lined pools and fruit trees. These gardens weren't just pretty, they showed the king's ability to tame nature, a Zoroastrian ideal of bringing order to chaos. Recent studies estimate qanats boosted agricultural output by 30%, letting the empire support millions. But there's a twist. Building qanats was grueling, often using forced labor. Some argue this reflects the empire's darker side, exploiting workers to fuel growth. Still, qanats were a quiet revolution, a hidden strength that made deserts bloom and kept the empire fed. Speaking of Zoroastrianism, let's dive into the spiritual glue that shaped Achaemenid life. This ancient faith, founded by the prophet Zoroaster, or Zarathustra, was a cornerstone of Persian identity, but its influence on the empire is a hot topic. Zoroastrianism's core is a cosmic duel between Ahura Mazda, the god of truth and light, and Angra Mainyu, the spirit of chaos and lies. Humans, especially kings, must fight for truth through good deeds, words, and thoughts. Sounds abstract, but it was practical. Darius leaned hard into this, calling himself Ahura Mazda's chosen in the Behistun inscription. His reliefs show the winged Faravahar, a Zoroastrian symbol, hovering over him. This wasn't just piety, it was politics, framing his rule as a divine mission to justify his dubious throne. How deep did Zoroastrianism run? That's where it gets juicy. The Achaemenids didn't force their faith on subjects. Egyptians worshipped Amun, Babylonians Marduk, but it shaped governance. The faith's emphasis on truth, Drisha Arta, inspired laws against perjury and corruption, as seen in Persepolis tablets punishing dishonest officials. Its respect for nature aligned with qanats and gardens, seen as acts of cosmic order. Some scholars argue Zoroastrianism influenced Achaemenid tolerance, letting diverse peoples keep their gods as long as they paid taxes and stayed loyal. Others see it in the empire's moral code. Kings were expected to be just, not tyrannical, a contrast to Assyrian brutality. Recent finds, like fire altars at Pasargadae, suggest Zoroastrian rituals were central to royal life, with priests, magi, advising kings. But there's debate. Were the Achaemenids devout Zoroastrians, or did they use the faith as a PR tool? Critics point out Darius worshipped other gods, like Anahita, blending traditions to appeal to subjects. Either way, Zoroastrianism gave the empire a philosophical edge, influencing later faiths like Judaism and Christianity with ideas of good versus evil and a final judgment. Let's zoom out to another underappreciated strength: the empire's knack for cultural fusion. The Achaemenids didn't just conquer, they blended. Take Persepolis' art, its lion bull motifs nod to Mesopotamia, its lotus flowers to Egypt, its columned halls to Greece. This wasn't random, it was deliberate, a visual pitch for unity. The royal road, stretching 1,500 miles, didn't just carry armies, it moved artisans, ideas, and spices, creating a globalized world. Aramaic, the empire's lingua franca, let Babylonian chat with Bactrians. Tablets from Susa show Greek sculptors working alongside Persian smiths, a cultural mashup that sparked innovation. Recent digs in Anatolia uncover Achaemenid-style jewelry with Lydian flair, proof of this melting pot. This fusion wasn't just aesthetic, it was practical, keeping diverse peoples invested in the empire's success. But it had risks. Some satraps adopted local ways too eagerly, stirring tensions with the Persian core. Another hidden gem? The empire's postal system, or Aster Angarium. Couriers on the royal road swapped horses at stations, delivering messages in days across continents. Herodotus praised their speed, and their motto, "Neither snow nor rain," inspired modern postal services. This wasn't just mail, it was control, letting kings monitor distant satraps. Persepolis records show couriers carrying royal decrees, trade deals, even personal letters. Recent studies suggest this system boosted trust as locals saw the king's reach in action. It's a reminder. The Achaemenids weren't just big, they were connected, a strength that kept rebellion in check. What ties these strengths together? Adaptability, women's roles maximized talent, Khanats fueled growth, Zoroastrianism gave moral weight, and cultural fusion built loyalty. These weren't flashy like Xerxes' bridges, but they were the empire's backbone. Recent speculations add intrigue. Some argue women's influence grew as the court became more insular, foreshadowing instability. Others see Khanats as a model for sustainable tech, relevant today. Zoroastrianism's impact on monotheism sparks debate. Did it shape the Bible's apocalyptic visions? These questions make the Achaemenids feel alive, not dusty history. But as Artaxerxes rules, new threats loom. The empire's strengths are mighty, but can they withstand a storm from Macedon? That's next, and it's going to shake everything up. Why should you care? Because these hidden strengths, empowering women, mastering nature, blending faiths and cultures, aren't just ancient trivia. They're lessons in what makes empires endure or falter. The Achaemenids weren't perfect. Their reliance on labor and palace intrigue had costs, but their innovations, from Khanats still flowing to ideas echoing in modern governance, show a civilization that didn't just conquer, it created. Curious about how it all comes crashing down? Stick around because the final act is a wild one. Section 6. Darius III's tragic fall. The Achaemenid Empire was a marvel, built on Cyrus's mercy. Darius I's genius and hidden strengths like Khanats and powerful women. It survived Xerxes' Greek fiasco and palace betrayals, holding strong through Artaxerxes III's steady hand. But by 336 BC, the throne passes to Darius III, a king facing a storm unlike any before, a Macedonian whirlwind named Alexander. This isn't just a war. It's the endgame for an empire that once ruled the world. Darius III's reign starts with promise but ends in one of history's most gut-wrenching betrayals, as his own satrap Bessus stabs him in the back. Literally, Alexander sweeps through, and Persepolis, the empire's glittering heart, goes up in flames. Was that fire revenge, a drunken mistake, or something deeper? Let's unravel the tragic fall of Darius III, because this story of loyalty, loss, and a burning legacy will hit you hard. Let's set the stage. It's 336 BC, and the Achaemenid Empire is still massive, stretching from Egypt to India. But cracks are showing. Decades of court intrigue, heavy taxes from Xerxes' campaigns, and rebellions in Egypt and Anatolia have strained the system. Darius III, a distant cousin of the royal line, takes the throne after a messy coup. His predecessor, Artaxerxes IV, was poisoned by the vizier Bagoas, who then tried to puppet Darius but got outmaneuvered. Darius had him killed instead. This guy's no pushover. He's about 45. A seasoned governor with a rep for bravery, having once slain a rebel in single combat. Greek sources like Diodorus call him tall, handsome, and noble, but also unprepared for the crown, Unlike Darius I, he's not a reformer, and the empire he inherits is a complex beast. Satraps wield too much power, the treasury stretched, and the army, though huge, hasn't faced a real test since Greece. Enter Alexander, a 20-year-old Macedonian king with a chip on his shoulder and a knack for war that's about to flip the world upside down. Alexander's no ordinary foe. Crowned in 336 BC after his father, Philip II's murder, he's inherited a battle-hardened Macedonian army with phalanxes of spear-wielding infantry and elite companion cavalry. Philip's dream was to punish Persia for Xerxes' invasion, and Alexander's all-in fueled by ambition and a Homeric obsession with glory. By 334 BC, he crosses the Hellespont with 35,000 men, tiny compared to Persia's might, but tightly disciplined. His goal? Smash the Achaemenids and claim their empire? Darius III underestimates him, seeing a young upstart stirring trouble in Persian-controlled Anatolia. Big mistake, Alexander's about to unleash a blitz that'll make the empire's strengths, its size, wealth, diversity, its weaknesses. The first blow lands at the Granicus River in 334 BC. Alexander's army faces a Persian force led by local satraps, not Darius himself. The Persians, with 20,000 infantry and 20,000 cavalry, including Greek mercenaries, hold a strong position. But Alexander charges head-on, leading his cavalry across the river in a daring assault. His phalanx pins the Persian center, while he cuts through their left, killing satraps like Mithridates. The Persians rout, losing thousands. Alexander's losses are under 200. Granicus opens Anatolia, and cities like Sardis surrender. Darius in Susa gets the wake-up call. This isn't a border skirmish, Alexander's playing for keeps. Recent studies suggest Darius's satraps acted independently, a sign of the empire's decentralized strain. If Darius had led the fight himself, could he have stopped Alexander early? That's a big what if. Darius rallies for round 2 at Issus in 333 BC, now commanding in person. He musters a huge army. Greek sources claim 600,000, but modern estimates say 100,000, still dwarfing Alexander's 40,000. The battlefield, a narrow coastal plain in modern Turkey, should favor Persia's numbers, with Darius's scythed chariots and Greek mercenaries ready to roll. But Alexander outsmarts him. He feints with infantry, then slams his cavalry into Darius's left, aiming for the king himself. Persian lines buckle, and Darius, seeing his guard falter, flees to save his life. His family, wife Statera, mother Cambyses, and daughters are captured. Alexander treats them with respect, a nod to chivalry, but the loss is a gut punch. Issus isn't just a defeat, it's a humiliation. Darius offers peace, land, gold, even a daughter in marriage, but Alexander scoffs, eyeing the whole empire. Archaeological finds like Persian seals in Babylon show Darius still issued orders post-Issus, but his grip's slipping. Satraps are wavering, and Alexander's rolling south, taking Tyre in Egypt by 332 BC. The decisive clash comes at Gaugamela in 331 BC, near modern Mosul, Iraq. Darius picks an open plain, perfect for his 200,000 men, including 200 scythed chariots, 15 war elephants, and Bactrian cavalry under Bessus, satrap of Bactria. Alexander, with 47,000, is outnumbered but undaunted. Darius prepares traps, smoothed fields for chariots, spiked obstacles. But Alexander's tactics are surgical. He angles his army obliquely, baiting Darius to overextend. When a gap opens in the Persian line, Alexander charges with his companions, aiming straight for Darius. The Persian center collapses, and Darius again flees. His army disintegrates, with Bessus and others abandoning ship. Gaugamela is a masterclass in Alexander's genius, but it exposes Darius's fatal flaw. He's a decent king, but no match for a warlord. Recent analyses argue Darius's reliance on size over strategy doomed him. Persepolis tablets show troop levies draining satrapies, hinting at an overstretched empire. Alexander now holds Babylon, Susa, and Ecbatana, the empire's core. Here's where it gets heartbreaking. Darius, now a fugitive, heads east to Bactria, hoping to regroup. He's got loyalists like Bessus, but loyalty's thin when defeat looms. By mid-330 BC, with Alexander closing in, Bessus makes his move. This isn't just disloyalty, it's a dagger in the back. Bessus, with other satraps like Barcentes, betrays Darius, chaining him in a cart like a common criminal. Their plan? Hand him to Alexander for favor or kill him to claim power. Arrian, a Roman historian, says they stabbed Darius and left him bleeding on a dusty road near Hecatopolis, modern Damgan, Iran. Alexander finds him, barely alive, and Darius dies, his last moments shrouded in tragedy. Alexander, in a rare show of respect, covers the body with his cloak and later gives him a royal funeral. Why the betrayal? Bessus likely saw Darius as a lost cause, hoping to rule Bactria as king. He declares himself Artaxerxes V, but Alexander hunts him down, capturing him in 329 BC. Bessus's fate, mutilation and execution, is grim, a warning to traitors. Recent speculation suggests Bessus acted out of desperation, as satraps lost faith in centralized rule. Persepolis records show Bactrian elites hoarding resources, a sign of fracturing loyalty. With Darius dead, Alexander claims the empire, but one act seals the Achaemenid fate, the burning of Persepolis in 330 BC. This isn't just a city, it's the empire's soul, with its Apadana Hall and reliefs of unity. Alexander winters there, looting its treasury, 120,000 talents of gold, enough to fund his wars for years. Then, one night, the palace goes up in flames. Why? Ancient sources clash. Arrian says it was planned, revenge for Xerxes burning Athens in 480 BC. Diodorus and Plutarch claim it was a drunken accident, sparked when Alexander and his men, partying with courtesans like Thais, tossed torches in a boozy haze. Thais, an Athenian, reportedly urged the fire to settle old scores. But there's more to it. Recent scholars like Pierre Bryant argue it was strategic. Burning Persepolis erased Achaemenid legitimacy, signaling to satraps that Alexander was the new king. Excavations show only the palace burned, not the city, suggesting precision, not chaos. Others see symbolism. Zoroastrianism revered fire as sacred, so torching the palace might have been a calculated insult. Chemical analysis of Persepolis ash layers confirms intense heat, consistent with deliberate arson. Was it vengeance, propaganda, or a mix? The debate's alive, but the fire marks the end. Persepolis, once a beacon, is left a ruin. Why did the empire fall so fast? Darius III wasn't weak, but he faced a perfect storm. Alexander's tactics, speed, adaptability, and morale outclassed Persia's lumbering armies. The empire's size, a strength under Darius I, became a liability. Satraps like Bessus prioritized self-interest over unity. Economic strain from past wars left the treasury vulnerable as Persepolis tablets show declining silver inflows. Zoroastrianism's call for loyalty to a just king faltered when Darius couldn't deliver victories. Recent studies also point to cultural factors. Alexander adopted Persian customs like proskynesis, bowing, winning over elites, while Darius struggled to inspire. Some argue the empire was already fraying. Alexander just kicked the door in. Others say Darius's defensive strategy, avoiding pitched battles early, might have worked if Bessus hadn't bolted. Either way, the betrayal and Persepolis' fall are a gut punch, ending 220 years of Achaemenid rule. What's the fallout? Alexander declares himself king, marrying Darius's daughter Stateira to cement his claim. He keeps the satrapy system, blending Persian and Macedonian rule, but his empire frays after his death in 323 BC. The Achaemenids are gone, but their shadow lingers. Their roads, coins, and tolerance shape the Hellenistic world and beyond. Recent digs in Bactria uncover Achaemenid-style forts, showing their influence outlasted their reign. Darius III's tragedy isn't just personal, it's the empire's. He fought a genius, led a fracturing realm, and died betrayed. The burning of Persepolis, whether spite or strategy, closes the book on a dynasty that redefined empires. But is this really the end? The Achaemenids' ideas live on, and that's where we're headed next. Curious how a fallen empire still shapes our world? Stick around, because the finale is going to blow you away. Why care about Darius III's fall? It's not just ancient drama, it's a lesson in loyalty, hubris, and the fragility of power. Bessus's betrayal shows how empires crack when trust fades. Persepolis' flames remind us symbols matter as much as armies, and Alexander's conquest proves a small, driven force can topple giants. The Achaemenids' collapse isn't just history, it's a mirror for today's empires, teetering on their own hidden faults. Ready for the legacy that outlives the fire? Let's roll. Section 7, The Enduring Legacy. The Achaemenid Empire is ashes. Cyrus's dream of unity, Darius II's administrative genius, and the hidden strengths of Knaats and powerful women couldn't stop Alexander's conquest. By 330 BC, Darius III lies dead, betrayed by Bessus, and Persepolis burns, its flames marking the end of a dynasty that ruled from India to Egypt. But here's the thing about empires. Even when they fall, their ideas can outlive the ruins. The Achaemenids didn't just conquer, they reshaped how we govern, worship, and live, leaving echoes in modern nations, religions, and even the United Nations itself. How did a 2,500-year-old empire influence our world today? And what's this surprising UN connection that'll make you see the Achaemenids in a new light? Let's wrap up this epic saga by exploring the enduring legacy of a civilization that's still teaching us lessons, because this story's final twist is one you won't see coming. Let's start with governance, because the Achaemenids were the OG architects of running a massive, diverse empire without losing their cool. Picture a realm with dozens of languages, faiths, and cultures, from desert nomads to city merchants. Most ancient powers like the Assyrians ruled by fear, crushing rebels, torching towns. The Achaemenids? They played it smarter. Cyrus set the tone with his mercy, sparing defeated kings and letting locals keep their customs. Darius I turned this into a system, splitting the empire into satrapies, provinces run by governors who answered to the king, but had room to flex. This wasn't a one-size-fits-all dictatorship, it was a balancing act. Egyptians followed their laws, Babylonians theirs, all while paying taxes and staying loyal. The royal road and Aramaic as a common tongue tied it together, letting orders zip from Susa to Sardis in days. Persepolis tablets, dug up in the 20th century, show scribes tracking taxes, wages, and disputes in multiple scripts. A bureaucratic machine that'd make modern accountants jealous. This system wasn't just ancient. It's a blueprint for today. The Roman Empire borrowed the satrapy idea, using provinces with local elites to govern far-flung lands. The Islamic caliphates, from the Umayyads to the Ottomans, echoed Achaemenid tolerance, letting Christians and Jews thrive under Muslim rule. Fast forward to modern federal systems like the United States or India, where states or provinces handle local issues under a central government. Sound familiar? It's Darius's playbook, central control with regional wiggle room. Recent studies, like those by historian Amelie Court, argue the Achaemenids pioneered multicultural governance, a fancy term for ruling diversity without erasing it. The UN's focus on national sovereignty within a global framework, that's an Achaemenid vibe, prioritizing cooperation over conquest. Their Daric coins, standardizing trade, even foreshadowed global currencies like the euro. The Achaemenids showed that empires don't need to steamroll differences. They can thrive on them, a lesson we're still grappling with in 2025. Now let's talk religion, because the Achaemenids' faith, Zoroastrianism, didn't just shape their empire, it left ripples across the spiritual world. Founded by the prophet Zoroaster, this religion pits Ahura Mazda, the god of truth and light, against Angra Mainyu, the force of chaos. Kings like Darius I saw themselves as Mazda's warriors, fighting the lie with justice and order. This wasn't just talk. Zoroastrianism influenced Achaemenid laws, from punishing perjury to promoting environmental care through qanats and gardens. Fire altars uncovered at Pasar Gadai show rituals were central, with priests, magi, advising the court. But the Achaemenids didn't force their faith on others, letting Egyptians worship Amun and Jews rebuild their temple in Jerusalem, as noted in the Bible's book of Ezra. Here's where it gets wild. Zoroastrianism's ideas didn't stay in Persia. Its dualism, good versus evil, light versus dark, seeped into Judaism during the Babylonian exile, when Jews lived under Achaemenid rule. Concepts like a final judgment, angels, and a messianic savior, prominent in later Judaism and Christianity, bear Zoroastrian fingerprints. Recent scholarship, like that of Mary Boyce, suggests Persian priests interacted with Jewish scribes, swapping ideas that shaped the Bible's apocalyptic visions. Christianity, building on Judaism, carried these forward, with heaven and hell echoing Zoroastrian afterlife beliefs. Islam, too, absorbed elements. Its emphasis on charity and truth aligns with Zoroastrian ethics. Today, Zoroastrian communities in India, Parsis, and Iran keep the faith alive, their fire temples a link to Achaemenid roots. Archaeological finds, like Achaemenid-era seals with Faravahar symbols, show the faith's reach, influencing everything from Gnosticism to modern New Age spirituality. The Achaemenids' open-minded approach to religion, live and let live, set a precedent for pluralistic societies, a cornerstone of modern democracies. Cultures next, and the Achaemenids were masters of the remix. Their art, architecture, and lifestyle were a mashup of every culture they touched. Persepolis's palaces blend Mesopotamian lion motifs, Egyptian lotus flowers, and Greek-style columns into a unique Achaemenid aesthetic. Reliefs of tribute bearers, Bactrians with camels, Indians with gold, celebrate diversity unlike Assyrian art gloating over slain foes. This wasn't just decor, it was propaganda, showing the empire as a harmonious whole. Excavations in Anatolia and Central Asia uncover Achaemenid-style jewelry and pottery, proof of a cultural network carried by the royal road. Their paradise gardens, with qanat-fed orchards, inspired the Islamic charbagh and European formal gardens like Versailles. The word paradise itself, from Persian paradisa, is an Achaemenid gift to English. This cultural fusion went beyond aesthetics. The Achaemenids standardized weights and measures, easing trade from Susa to Athens. Their postal system, with couriers racing along the royal road, inspired modern logistics. Think FedEx with horses. Aramaic, their administrative language, became a global script influencing Hebrew and Brahmi, the ancestor of many Indian scripts. Recent digs in Bactria reveal Achaemenid-style forts, showing their architectural influence stretched to Central Asia, shaping Silk Road cities. Even Greek culture, despite the rivalry, absorbed Persian vibes. Think of Athens' Odeon mimicking Persepolis' halls. The Achaemenids' knack for blending without erasing left a template for globalization, where cultures mix but keep their flavor. A dynamic we see in today's multicultural cities. Now for that UN connection, it's a real eye-opener. In 1879, archaeologists unearthed the Cyrus cylinder, a clay artifact from Babylon dated to 539 BC. It records Cyrus's conquest, proclaiming how he freed captives, restored temples, and let peoples return home like the Jews to Jerusalem. This wasn't just a king bragging, it was a statement of tolerance, rare for its time. Fast forward to 1968, the UN, seeking a symbol of human rights, spotlights the cylinder at its New York headquarters. In 1971, a replica is presented to the UN by Iran, inscribed with a translation calling it an ancient declaration of human rights. It's displayed near the General Assembly, a nod to Achaemenid values of dignity and diversity. Critics argue it's not a legal charter, more like royal PR, but its spirit aligns with UN principles like self-determination. Recent debates, sparked by historians like Josef Wiesehofer, question if Cyrus's policies were altruistic or strategic, but the cylinder's impact is undeniable. It ties a 6th century king to modern ideals, a link that still sparks awe at UN tours. What's the deeper legacy? The Achaemenids showed how to govern diversity without tyranny, a lesson for today's polarized world. Their satrapy system inspires federalism from Canada to Germany. Their religious tolerance echoes in constitutions guaranteeing freedom of worship. Their cultural fusion lives in global cities like London or Dubai, where traditions coexist. But there's a flip side. Heavy taxes and court intrigue, as seen in Persepolis records, foreshadow how empires overreach. Recent economic studies estimate Achaemenid tax hikes after Xerxes' campaign strained loyalty, a warning for modern governments juggling budgets and trust. Their fall to Alexander highlights fragility. Empires need unity, not just systems. Speculation swirls around Zoroastrianism's role in modern ethics. Did its focus on truth shape corporate social responsibility? Or how about qanats inspiring sustainable water tech in arid regions? These questions keep the Achaemenids relevant, a mirror for our triumphs and traps. Let's zoom out. The Achaemenid legacy isn't just in museums or UN halls, it's in how we live. When you vote in a federal election, thank their satrapies. When you pray in a diverse community, nod to their tolerance. When you stroll a garden or use a standardized coin, tip your hat to their innovations. Their art, from Persepolis' ruins to Bactrian seals, inspires artists blending old and new. Their postal system lives in your Amazon delivery. And the Cyrus cylinder? It's a reminder that even ancient kings wrestled with balancing power and humanity, a debate we're still having in 2025. Recent archaeological finds, like Achaemenid-era inscriptions in Armenia, show their influence kept evolving, shaping Hellenistic and Parthian empires. They didn't just rule, they rewrote the rules, and we're still playing by them. So, what can we learn from the Achaemenids? Their rise from a tiny tribe to a world power shows vision beats brute force. Their fall warns that betrayal and overstretch can topple giants. Their legacy, governance, faith, culture, proves ideas outlast empires. As we face our own empires today, from global corporations to superpowers, the Achaemenids ask, how do we unite without erasing, lead without oppressing? That's the challenge they leave us, a spark from a fire that burned out but never faded. Hit that like button. Share your thoughts below. And subscribe for more stories that connect past to present. The Achaemenids are gone, but their lessons, they're right here, shaping our world in ways you'll never unsee. Why care? Because the Achaemenids aren't just history, they're a guide. Their governance model helps us navigate diversity. Their faith challenges us to live ethically. Their culture reminds us to blend, not bulldoze. And that UN link? It's proof their ideas still resonate. From ancient clay to modern charters. Curious about other empires that shaped us? Let us know what's next, because history's got more secrets to spill. Conclusion: we've journeyed through the epic saga of the Achaemenid Empire, a tale that began with a spark in the rugged hills of ancient Iran and ended in flames at the heart of Persepolis. From a small tribe's audacious rebellion to a sprawling empire that redefined power, the Achaemenids left a mark on history that still shapes our world in 2025. We've seen legendary kings, shocking betrayals, and hidden strengths that made this dynasty a marvel. But their fall, as swift as their rise, holds lessons that echo far beyond ancient ruins. How did this empire soar so high, only to crash so hard? And what can today's empires, be they nations, corporations, or global systems, learn from a legacy that's both inspiring and cautionary? Let's wrap this story with a look back at the Achaemenids' incredible arc and a question that'll leave you thinking long after the screen fades. Let's rewind to where it all began around 559 BC with a man named Cyrus. Whether he was a prince or a shepherd dodging a death sentence, his origins are shrouded in mystery, but his impact was crystal clear. Leading the Persians, a scrappy tribe under Median rule, Cyrus pulled off a stunning upset, toppling his overlords not with slaughter but with mercy. He spared the Median king Astyages, welcomed their nobles, and built an empire on the radical idea that unity trumps fear. This wasn't just a power grab, it was a new way of ruling, blending cultures into a realm that stretched from Anatolia to Central Asia. Cyrus's clemency, rooted in pragmatism and maybe Zoroastrian ideals of truth, set the Achaemenids apart, a foundation that made them more than conquerors. But as we've seen, even the boldest visions face tests. Cyrus's son Cambyses II took the baton, eyeing Egypt, the ancient titan of the Nile. In 525 BC, he marched across the Sinai, outsmarting defenses to seize Memphis and claim the pharaoh's crown. But Greek tales painted him as unhinged, accusing him of stabbing a sacred Apis bull in a fit of rage. Was this true, or propaganda to smear a Persian king? Egyptian records show Cambyses honored local rituals, suggesting he was more calculated than crazy. Yet his reign ended in chaos when a rebel, maybe his brother Bardia, maybe a fraud named Gaumata, stole the throne. Cambyses' death, possibly no accident, left the empire wobbling, setting the stage for a new player to rewrite the rules. Enter Darius I, a noble with a questionable claim but unmatched ambition. In 522 BC, he and his crew took out the so-called Gaumata, declaring him an imposter. Hero or hustler? The Behistun inscription spins a tidy tale, but whispers of a coup linger. Darius didn't just seize power, he transformed the empire into a masterpiece of governance. Satrapies, the royal road, gold derricks, and a legal system balancing local customs with royal control made the empire a well-oiled machine. Persepolis, his glittering capital, showcased this unity, its art blending Egyptian, Greek, and Babylonian styles. But Darius's Greek ventures, like the loss at Marathon in 490 BC, hinted at limits, a challenge his son would take to new heights. Xerxes I, crowned in 486 BC, went all in with a colossal invasion of Greece, seeking to erase Marathon's stain. His pontoon bridges across the Hellespont and a canal through Athos were engineering feats that screamed Persian might. Yet the 480 BC Battle of Salamis saw Athens's nimble fleet sink his navy, a blow that forced retreat. Back home, Xerxes poured wealth into Persepolis, but court intrigue festered. In 465 BC, his own bodyguard, Artabanus, betrayed him, ending his reign in a shocking assassination. This wasn't just a murder, it exposed a rotting core where loyalty was fraying and nobles were growing bold. Despite these cracks, the empire's hidden strengths kept it humming. Women like Atassa and Irdabama ran estates and shaped politics, challenging stereotypes of ancient patriarchy. Qanats, underground water channels, turned deserts into breadbaskets, some still flowing today. Zoroastrianism, with its call for truth and order, gave moral weight to laws and inspired later faiths like Judaism and Christianity. Cultural fusion, art, trade, and ideas flowing along the royal road made the empire a global hub, a model for today's multicultural world. These innovations, often overlooked, were the glue that held a diverse realm together even as threats loomed. That threat became a storm under Darius III, crowned in 336 BC. He faced Alexander of Macedon, a young genius whose small, disciplined army tore through Persia like lightning. At Granicus, Issus, and Gaugamela, Alexander's tactics outmatched Darius's numbers, exposing the empire's over-reliance on size. By 330 BC, Darius was a fugitive, betrayed by his satrap Bessus, who stabbed him and left him dying on a dusty road. Alexander, finding him, honored his rival with a royal funeral, but the empire was done. Persepolis burned. Revenge, drunken mishap, or a calculated act to end Achaemenid pride. Whatever the cause, the flames closed a 220-year chapter, leaving ruins that still whisper of glory. But the Achaemenids didn't vanish. They transformed. Their legacy is a thread woven into the fabric of our world. Their satrapy system inspired Roman provinces, Islamic caliphates, and modern federalism from the US to India, their tolerance, letting locals keep their gods and laws, set a precedent for pluralistic societies, echoed in constitutions guaranteeing freedom of worship. Zoroastrianism's dualism shaped Jewish and Christian concepts of good versus evil, influencing billions. Their cultural fusion, from Persepolis' art to standardized coins, laid the groundwork for globalization, seen in today's diverse cities. And then there's the Cyrus cylinder, a 539 BC artifact, hailed as an early human rights charter. Displayed at the UN, it links Cyrus's vision of freeing captives to modern ideals of dignity, a connection that still sparks debate. Was it genuine compassion or royal spin? Either way, it's a bridge from ancient clay to 2025's global stage. What made the Achaemenids special wasn't just their size, it was their ideas. Cyrus's mercy showed power doesn't need cruelty. Darius's bureaucracy proved diversity can be a strength, not a weakness. Khanats and women's roles revealed innovation in unexpected places. Yet their fall holds warnings. Heavy taxes, as Persepolis tablets show, strained loyalty, a lesson for governments balancing budgets today. Court intrigue, from Xerxes' murder to Bessus's betrayal, underscores how internal rot can topple giants. Alexander's conquest proved that agility beats complacency, a wake-up call for modern powers facing nimble rivals. Recent speculations add depth. Did Zoroastrianism's ethics inspire corporate social responsibility? Do Khanats offer solutions for today's water crises? These questions keep the Achaemenids alive, not as relics, but as a mirror for our times. Let's reflect on the arc. The Achaemenids rose because they dared to be different, ruling with inclusion, not iron fists. They thrived by adapting, blending cultures, and building systems that outlasted battles. But they fell when those systems stretched too thin, when loyalty frayed, and when a genius like Alexander exploited their flaws. Their story isn't just history. It's a saga of ambition, innovation, and hubris, as relevant in 2025 as it was in 330 BC. From the UN's halls to global trade networks, their fingerprints are everywhere. The Royal Roads couriers echo in your Amazon delivery. Their tolerance lives in diverse neighborhoods. Their governance shapes how nations balance unity and autonomy. So here's the question that lingers. What can modern empires, nations, tech giants, global systems learn from the Achaemenids' rise and fall? They teach us that embracing diversity can build strength, but only if trust holds. They show that innovation, like khanats or satrapies, can sustain power, but overreach invites collapse. They warn that betrayal, whether by a Bessus or a boardroom, can undo centuries of work. In a world of rising powers, climate challenges, and cultural clashes, the Achaemenids ask, how do we unite without erasing, lead without oppressing, and grow without breaking? Their legacy isn't just a story, it's a challenge. Can we learn from their triumphs and mistakes? Or are we doomed to repeat their fall, watching our own Persepolis burn? Hit that like button, share your thoughts below. What's the biggest lesson you take from the Achaemenids? Subscribe for more stories that connect the past to our present, because history isn't dead, it's talking to us right now. The Achaemenids built a world, lost it, but left us their wisdom. What we do with it is up to us. So, as we close this epic, let's ponder. In 2025, with our own empires teetering, how will we answer the call to build, unite, and endure? Thanks for joining this journey. Let's keep exploring the past to shape the future. Why care about this conclusion? Because the Achaemenids aren't just ancient kings, they're a guide for navigating today's world. Their governance, tolerance, and innovations offer tools for our challenges, from global cooperation to sustainable tech. Their fall reminds us power is fragile, trust is precious, and hubris is deadly. That UN cylinder, it's a symbol of ideals we're still chasing. The Achaemenid story ends, but their question, what makes an empire last, is ours to answer. Ready for more history that hits home? Drop a comment and let's keep the conversation going.